So, we welcome you back again. We are up to Mark chapter 5 today as we work through the Gospel of Mark. Again, remembering that Mark wrote his Gospel to a church that was several decades removed from the life of Jesus, and they are wondering what it means to be a people who follow in the teachings and the life of Jesus. So, they've heard stories, they've seen things that have been written about him, but not in one place like this. And so Mark decides, based on the testimony of Peter, to put this all together and send it and circulate it to the church. And so we have to remember that what we're reading here are actual stories and are actual happenings, but the way that they're edited together, the way that they are written is distinctly designed so that Mark can bless the first century church and teach them about what it means to follow Jesus. So what we do is, we're obviously a long way away from that now. We're 2,000 years past that. We have to dive into this, recognize that Mark has put these together for that purpose. But that doesn't mean that the Spirit of God still can't teach us something about our time and our context and what it means to follow Jesus. Remember, the reason that we're chasing Jesus through the Gospel of Mark is not so that we can be smarter and fill our heads with more Bible knowledge, but so that we can get closer to the one who we call our Saviour and understand what it means to live a life that is closely connected to Him. So Mark chapter 5 is the chapter. It has two basic stories. If you haven't read Mark chapter 5, then pause now, go read it, and come back. For those of you that have already read it, on we go. So Mark chapter 5, there are two basic stories. One is Jesus having just calmed the storm, now moving across the ocean and going to the region of the Gerasenes, Mark says. Now, this is, to you and I, we just think, oh, he's jumped in a boat and he's gone across the lake. That's fine. We do that kind of stuff all the time. Jump in a boat, go across somewhere, and it's all fine. But what you don't understand here is that Jesus has taken his disciples out of Israel and out of the land where the Jews are predominant and when the customs and rituals and religion is dominant, and taken them to an area which is now predominantly populated by Gentiles, non-Jews, people who do not respect and do not observe Jewish practice. And you understand, I hope, that when a Jew comes in contact with a Gentile, there are certain Levitical laws in the Old Testament that declare that that Jew, for a certain period, depending on what they've done and what they've touched, is now ceremonially unclean. There is a cost for a Jew to go across to the place where the Gentiles are. Jesus has just calmed a storm. Now, again, we look at this and we go, what a powerful miracle. What we need to understand here is the power of the ocean and the power of the water in Hebrew literature. In Genesis chapter 1, God is hovering above the water, the watery chaos, by his Spirit before the act of creation begins. And so we have this understanding of God drawing order from chaos. So water represents chaos, and that's where all the chaos monsters live too. If you read through Psalms, you read through Job and stuff like that, you've got Leviathan and the deep monsters of the deep and all that kind of stuff referenced. Well, they all live in that place. The chaos monsters, the things that wreck the world, the things that might rise up and challenge God, even Yahweh, at some point, are these giant chaos monsters who live in the ocean. And so Jesus comes along, and he now is the one who calms the ocean. In other words, he is the one who brings order from chaos. And this actually is interesting to us if we go to the end of the Bible in Revelation. I think it's chapter 21, where we see that there will be no more sea. And for me, I live right down by Seacliff, and I love the ocean. The ocean's fantastic. And I'm like reading that a little while ago and going, oh, that makes me sad. I love it. But again, if you're a Jewish reader, and John, who's writing the book of Revelation, is a Jewish man writing to churches, he's saying basically this. He's not saying there'll be no more ocean. He's saying the chaos that brings pain to our lives will end, because the very next verse is, and there will be no more crying and no more tears and no more pain. So Jesus conquers that. So what happens now is he crosses over, and now he takes his disciples as a declaration of himself now to a reader going like, whoa, So there is a strong connection between Jesus and God. In a sense, God's presence and power might even rest on him, as shown by this miracle. He comes across, he drags his disciples now into Gentile territory. Now this is a radical departure from any narrative that a good Jew would have had, because a good Jew has the narrative of God comes down, Yahweh comes down, fills the temple with his Shekinah glory, and what happens is from there he now conquer all the people who are over them, the Romans and the Persians and the Medes and the Babylonians, all of those people, and anyone that might come, the Greeks, they're going to be cast out. In Israel will be brought back to its place of primacy in the world, because God is on his throne and all is good in the world. Instead of going to the temple, Jesus goes to this Gentile area. It's like, Jesus, what the heck? You should be going to the temple. And this is interesting later. We'll see what actually happens when Jesus does come to the temple. So a man with an impure spirit comes out from the tombs, a place of death, to meet him. He lived in the tombs. No one could bind him anymore. He'd been bound with chains. He busted them apart. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills he would cry out, and he would cut himself with stones. So this person has now been demonically affected and impacted to the point where he is now subhuman. He roars, he growls, he's naked, he doesn't live with people, he doesn't use normal words, he's guttural, and he self-harms, he cuts himself. He's completely disrespecting the image of God in the body made for him. And so when he sees Jesus from a distance, he runs and falls on his knees in front of him, shouts at the top of his voice, and I wish I could understand or could have heard what this voice would sound like, because it came up from within him. What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? And here we have a declaration here by a demonic presence, a dark spiritual force, who is now declaring what he knows that this person is. The Jews haven't recognized it, the disciples haven't recognized it, but this demon-filled man speaking, filled with this demon, recognizes this Son of the Most High God. And he says, in God's name, don't torture me, for Jesus had said to him, come out of him. An interesting question Jesus now says is, what's your name? Well, you and I would be like, well, what's your name? Well, my name's Dale. Well, your name's Bill or Susie or, Chagalawa, or whatever your name is. So it's a name is a name. It was like whatever mum and dad gave you. But in the biblical narrative, a name has to do with identity. That's why people's names would change. Jesus would change people's names. God would change people's names in the Old Testament. Abram became Abraham. Simon became Peter. Just identity shifts. So when Jesus is asking, what's your name? It's not just like, oh, hey, Bill. It's like, no, I need to know your identity. I need you to reveal yourself to me as to what and who you are. And so the name comes back, Legion. Now, you and I would understand that legion means many, but a Jew reading this understands that the Romans who are over them would use legions of soldiers, and a legion is just over 2,000 soldiers collected in a battalion, and they would go to dominate, to destroy, and to conquer in the name of their ruler. And so already a Jew would be reading this and going, okay, so it's a lot of demons, but maybe this is not just about demons as well. Maybe this is about Jesus making a statement about Rome and maybe even politics here. He says, my name is Legion, we are many. And he said to Jesus, don't send me out of the area. So Jesus casts the demons out, and where does he send them? Into a herd of pigs. What's the most unclean animal that a Jewish man or woman could ever come near? Well, it's a pig. So if you missed the first analogy that Jesus is in an unclean area, dealing with unclean things, surely the next layer is we're talking about pigs now, and there's 2,000 of them. So the demons come out, they go into the pigs, and they rush into the water that Jesus has just conquered, that has just calmed. And so these chaos demons, these chaos spiritual forces now go into the water, and they are now a part of the region, a part of the area that Jesus has conquered, into the water of chaos. So there's a statement here about the power of Jesus to restore someone to their right mind, because what happens next is the crowd comes back after seeing the pigs run out, and they come back and they see this person sitting in his right mind, clothed at Jesus' feet. Now, We, again, might not understand some of the symbolism of this, but to sit at the feet of your rabbi means that you're placing yourself in a posture of a disciple. So this demon-filled man who is now cleansed, clothed, and still got sores and scabs on him, has now placed himself in the posture of a disciple, and he says, I'm coming with you. And Jesus says, no, you're not. You're actually my first missionary. He doesn't go to the Pharisees to do this. He doesn't go to the disciples to do this. It is a demon-infested man, now cleansed, who becomes Jesus' missionary or disciple to the Decapolis, to the 10 Greek cities that are on the eastern side of the Jordan River there. And so this man, what a story he's telling. I mean, the cuts that he's got, every cut is another story, and people are looking at him going, whoa, what happened to you? And he says, I have to tell you about Jesus. Oh, you want to know about these cuts? Well, I was infested. I was infested with filth, and Jesus cast it out, and now it's in the bottom of the lake. It's been dealt with. The people couldn't deal with it, and so they asked Jesus to go away. They were so upset, they just asked him to go away. They couldn't understand it, they couldn't comprehend it. The Jews understood not only now that Jesus has come and is making a statement about his mission and ministry to those who are not Jews, he's also actually making a statement about the fact that he is superior to the military machine called Rome, because now he overcomes a legion. It's going to be interesting later as we see Jesus encounter Pilate and as we see Jesus encounter the Roman politics and the people in power later on. And what's the dynamic of what happens when Jesus encounters and what it actually means. It's actually going to give us some understanding too for when Peter confronts Jesus and Jesus says, I'm going to die. And Peter rebukes him and says, no, you're not. That's not what a good Messiah does. A good Messiah comes, rules and conquers. Well, Peter's living out of this mindset of what he understands and what he knows. Jesus, as he brings the kingdom, brings a completely different mindset. So it's authority, it's victory, it's peace, it's politics, and it's involving all people. The second part of the story is very, very powerful again, where Jesus raises a dead girl and heals a sick woman. But our time is out. We're not covering everything, so read that for yourself. Hey, we've got a great God, and our Saviour is amazing in terms of his authority and what he does and how he lives. But now he lives through us. So be encouraged this week. It is this one who lives in you by his Spirit, and you also have the power to bring order from chaos as you work in partnership with Jesus. So let's live that together. God bless.